Hello, dance teachers, dancers, and lovers of all things dance. It's Miss Shauna, and I am back today to talk about the fun but sometimes frustrating creative process when it comes to choreography. All right, dance teachers, as part of your job, we all know that the creative process is a huge part of what we do, right? Yes, we teach technique and we teach, stamina, endurance, muscle strength, flexibility, all of these things that give us the ability to put skills into our dances. But at the end of the day, dance is an art and there is a creative process that goes with it. And sometimes that can be super fun. It can be an outlet. It can be a way for us to dance, situations or experiences to life. It can be cathartic. But sometimes also getting to that point where you're ready to put a dance together or coming up with ideas can sometimes be a little bit frustrating. And I have not had a frustrating year in a while. I have had probably even through the crazy days, in the past few years, I have always had ideas, right? I'm like, oh, this can make a great dance. I can't wait to do this one. This year, though, I felt a little bit blocked. And normally, like at the end of recital, like last year, I'll have ideas for this coming year, right? And then normally I'll kind of start planning my choreo and then I'll get like rehearsals set and everything so that by like the end of November, like we're good, right? And I know some people set choreo in summer, like everybody's process is different, right? I set all of my solos, duos, and trios like kind of at this time of year, I start getting prepared for it, right? And I have been blocked. I don't want to say fully blocked, but we're saying like my creative process has not been necessarily where it normally is at this time of year. And I don't think it's for a lack of ideas. I have a lot of great, really cool ideas. Here's where I'm struggling this year, or where I've been struggling, is my dancers have come in this year fired up. They are ready to work. They can't wait to perform. And I want to make sure that the piece that I'm creating for them, whether it's solos or groups, all the different pieces that I'm creating, are doing them justice, are meeting them where they are at so we can go from here and just keep elevating, right? And I guess in all of that, I've been putting pressure on myself. So my creative process has been a little bit slower. And because of that, it has been very frustrating. So, what did I do? What can you do? If you're in this, if you live in this space, if you're like, oh my gosh, me too, right? I was talking to one of my teachers who's experienced the exact same thing, going, absolutely, me too. This is where I sit. This is how I feel. And so, what can you do, or what did I do to start to feel unblocked? So, there's a few things that I did that kind of took me backwards from what I normally do. So normally in my process, I either have an idea or a song, and from there I'm able to, pick a costume and do all the choreo. And I had zero songs, zero concepts. And I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I pulled out the costume books and I started there. And I was like, okay, what costumes do I like? Maybe these are going to inspire me to create a dance. And I flagged, every studio is different how you source costumes, but we have all the costume catalogs. And all of our teachers flagged the ones that they want with sticky notes. So there's no duplicates. And I flagged the ones that I wanted. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to sit in this space of like, I like these costumes. Here's my inspiration. We're going to see what happens. Maybe I'll change them. Maybe I won't. But I flagged them. I got some inspo and I like kind of left it there. And then I kind of looked back at them a week later and I was like, I think I'm going to change some of these. Pretty sure I'm going to change some of these, right? So, whatever. I took some time to look at costumes for inspo, and that started to fire things like a little bit more. And then from there, I just started listening to music, and for fun, by the way. I started listening to music for fun, not for picking a song, not for this is going to be my dance, but like, what's my mood today? What would I like to dance to today? And I started to go, oh, I like this song. And I just started to put them into a folder called ideas. And then I went back to it a little bit later and I was like, this is a horrible idea. But let me find more songs by this artist because I kind of like, this girl's voice or the vibe that's coming from this. So I just listened to some music. And then I kind of stopped and I said, okay, what are some themes that I think are important or concepts that I really enjoy dancing out this year? Like, what message would I like an audience to walk away with, or a feeling I would like them to walk away with? I'm like, what do I feel like the world needs, or what do I need? And if I was in an audience, what would I like to experience for that, 2.5, 3 minutes that these dancers are on stage? I kind of marinated in that. I didn't force anything. And then I was like, okay, well, whatever, that's fine. And then I kind of asked for other people to, if you hear a song that you like I was sitting in the office one day and I was like, hey, this is the vibe I'm going for, but not this song. I said, this song is too overused. I don't want to use this song. Everybody and their dog has used this song. I want something like this that can channel this feeling and this level of like intensity and excitement and pace and all of that, but not this song. And we realized that the song is from a movie. And so when you actually searched the artist, it didn't quite work that way. So we had to do like a little bit of searching, but we ended up finding like the perfect, I don't want to say replica because they're not at all, but the perfect song to channel what that original song. I'm not saying what it is because I haven't even told my dancers what it is yet, but this to take that energy from the song from the movie and create a dance with it. So that was kind of a fun process, finding and piecing together all of that. At the end of the day, though, there's two things that I really learned. So, yeah, I looked at costumes for inspo. I thought, like, what are the messages? What music can I use? But there's two things that I did that I found were the most helpful. And they're going to sound so silly and so simple when you think, like, oh my God, why was that so easy to just, say those two things? The first one was I put it out of my mind for a little bit. There was a week where I was like, I need music, I need music. And I'm sitting there with like my choreo book and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't have a song. What's going to match this dancer? And I was putting so much pressure on myself. And the more I thought about it, the harder it became. So I started to distract myself. I went for a walk. I went shopping. I bought pumpkins. I did all of these things to kind of focus on other things and get me out in the world just experiencing other things. And as I allowed myself to just go live and experience, more ideas started to flow in. I'm almost like I made room, right? I was putting so much weight in my brain of I need an idea, I need a song, I need a costume. And I was putting all this pressure on myself, going like, and it was like weighing deeper and deeper. And it was kind of like, if you think like a trash pile, you just keep putting trash, more trash, and it just keeps like building, right? And that's not saying that my ideas were trash, but I wasn't giving myself room or space to grow, to bloom, to flourish, to have ideas. So I put it on my mind, I distracted myself, I just let myself be. And then, so that was the first thing that I found was as beyond just saying, okay, yeah, I looked at costumes, I did all those other things, but I put it out of my mind. And then the other thing was I just didn't think so hard. I just didn't think so hard. I kept it simple because I'm like, I need a deep concept. And so to put that into perspective, I have a group of young dancers, young lyrical dancers, and I am all about making sure you don't mature your dancers too quick in terms of costuming, in terms of concepts. I don't think a 10-year-old needs to um, be dancing like a 17-year-old. I think that we can allow them to be creative and explore performance and learn skills and do all of the things and have just as much success if they're dancing like a 10-year-old versus if they're doing concepts and themes like a 17-year-old. It's really hard, and I think we can all say this, like as dance teachers, as performers, if your choreographer is trying to get you to dance a story that you don't relate to, that you don't understand, it is, no matter how many examples are given to you, it's really hard to channel that, right? And so this is a group of like 10 to 12-year-old lyrical, and they had said to me, I said, what do you picture for your dance? And they're like deep, dark, death. And I was like, whoa. I said, what does that mean to you guys? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And then it was like crickets, but they're like deep and dark and yeah. And I was like, oh heavens to Betsy, right? But I'm like, I don't think they. I think they just think they have to have like an intense, serious dance. We ended up finding a different approach to that. And when I explained to them, this was just the other day, I explained to them their concept, and they're like, they were holding on to my every word. And then one of them, sweet, sweet little angel, she goes, that was deep. And it was just like so cute. And I was like, yeah, but like you guys wanted a deep dance, but I needed to give you something that you can actually tell the story to. And they're like, that's a good one. And I was like, okay, good. All right. So I'm sitting there going, how am I, like originally I was like, how am I going to get a message for these 10 to 12-year-olds to sell when they don't know how to sell that? They shouldn't have to have had experienced all of those things yet to be able to tell that story. How do I give them something they can relate to? And I kind of simplified it a little bit. And and without getting too deep into the concept because they haven't like really started learning anything yet. So we have to, I want to make sure I'm not giving all the spoilers away on my answers, but they, they found something that they could actually connect to, which will make it so much easier for them to properly deliver the emotional side of this lyrical dance. And so instead of thinking so hard, I just paused and I was like, okay, like, deep and dark, and what emotions does that give, and what can you tie in? And as I did that, I went, that was a lot simpler than I made it. Right? I made it a lot more challenging. And same thing with picking some costumes. I was like, oh, okay, this is what I need. And then, oh, it's so serious. I got to find it and I got to find the right color. And I was like, wait, does the color make the dance or does the style make the dance, and vice versa, right? Does the style make the dance or is it a color that I'm going for? And so instead of making it so hard and so much pressure on myself, I just simplified it. And as I did that, similar to when I put stuff out of my mind, I started to simplify it. Things really started to roll. And I think that that same thing ties into when you're dancing. When you are a dancer or when you're a teacher working on like technique, and your dancer is just, we've all had those days where your dancer is trying to turn. And of course, they're prepping and you want them to be upright and it keeps dropping to the side, right? We keep tilting over. And I mean, sometimes you can fix that correction. And sometimes you're like, you know what? It is just a day. We're going to leave it today. Right. And the amount of times I've said to my dancers, we are going to leave it for today because you're just getting more and more frustrated and you're putting more and more pressure on yourself. Let's just leave it for today. We'll come back to it tomorrow or the next day whenever we're back working on these. And I would say like 99% of the time, we leave it for the day and they come back the next time and they're like, well, that was better. Like, yeah, we were just putting so much pressure on ourselves. We just needed to put it away. We need to clear our brains, do something else, and then it's going to be better. And I realize the same thing comes in this creative process. So, as a teacher, as a choreographer, creating new dances constantly, keeping the energy fresh, keeping the excitement alive, it can be challenging, daunting, difficult if you're not feeling inspired by something, right? Creation comes from inspiration. And if there's something you're not inspired by, if you don't have something you feel the need to dance out, or your dancers haven't, said, hey, listen, I need to dance this out. And you're like, yeah, I can create that for you. If you're not having any of that, it is tough to come out with new and exciting and flavorful choreography. And especially all of that in a way that your dancers can relate and enjoy, right? But I think what I learned, and if you can relate to any of this, please feel free to, if you were like, oh, I've lived this and here's some other things I did, feel free to share what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But I think the most important lesson that I learned this year through this creative process, because I am now finally ready to go in and start teaching choreo, and with ideas that I'm very excited about, in costumes that I'm excited about, with music that I love, right? But I think the most important thing that I learned was that when you do this job, as a dance teacher, as a full-time choreographer, when you do it, you have to create with your heart and soul, and you always have to create with the integrity of your dancers, um, like at the forefront, right? And I think that's where my pressure came, where I really wanted to make sure that I was putting something out that was the best for my dancers. And what I missed was that heart and soul. And when I finally found it and I put it all together, magic started to happen, right? The creative process really started. So don't stress, trust your talents, because here's the thing. Dance teachers, we do this. This is what we do, right? And sometimes we get caught in that, like, oh my God, what am I going to do this year? But like, we've done it every year. We keep doing it. We keep coming up with ideas. And usually as we grow in this role, even when we think you don't, like, I don't have a good idea, and you're sitting there going like, oh God, I don't know. The ideas just keep getting better and better. And like, hands up, choreographers and dance teachers, if you've taught an entire dance and you watch them do it and you're like, I need to change everything. And then someone else walks in the room and they're like, wow, this, of all the dances you've ever done, this is my favorite. And you're like, really? I was just going to change all of it. That happened to me a couple of years ago. One of my employees, who is, she's one of my first dancers. Like, I've known her since she was like a wee little one. And now she is one of my senior competitive teachers. And I wanted to change an entire dance. And so she's performed for me. She's worked alongside me. She creates her own dances. And she was like, do not change that dance. She's like, this is one of my favorite dances you've ever done. I was like, are you sure? She's like, don't change it. And then, we took it to competition and we got the same feedback from like all the things that I thought sucked. The adjudicators were like, love that. And I was like, oh, great. Like, I thought it was awful. So you never really know, right? You never really know. You just have to trust your talents, trust your processes, and trust that you have the ability to bring your dance or something that they can bring to life, right? And before you know it, once you do all of that, you're going to have a dance you love. You're going to have a dance that your dancers can put on stage with pride and joy and excitement. And another year will be in the books, and then it'll be time to start this whole process all over again. So I don't know where you sit on your choreo. I don't know if you start in the summer. I don't know if you start in the fall. If you're a guest choreographer, do you just hop in once in September and teach everything, and then it's up to someone else to clean it? Do you ask what concepts people want, or do you just come with one and then tell their regular teacher, hey, if you want to change things, just change things? Whatever it is, however you do it, what works for you in your creative process, what doesn't? When you feel the stress in it, how do you manage? How do you manage it? Do you go and buy pumpkins, or do you put the pressure on yourself? Either way, I think lesson learned: don't stress the creative process. Keep it simple. Don't put the pressure on yourself, and you're going to make magical dances happen. So if you're like me, don't stress. Don't stress. You've got this. This is me giving you permission to just give yourself the grace to go through the process and go like, I can do this. I got this. And if you were ahead of the game, if you're like, I've done, like, I finished all my choreo, like, bless your soul, because I need some of your high energy and creative juices, or at least I did until like a few days back. So, anyways, don't stress the creative process. That is the lesson today. Keep it simple. Don't be so hard on yourself. And until next time, keep on dancing, keep on shining, and I will see you